Welcome to First Responder Friday. Hi, my name's Conrad. I'm your host for the show. We are momentarily going to be joined by our special guest, but first I want to just give you a rundown on what's been happening here at PTSD 911 Movie. As you know, we are producing a documentary film called PTSD 911. It's a story about first responders and their coping with the traumas that they face each and every day. And so we've launched this First Responder Friday series to bring together the community to talk to experts about what's going on in our country and dealing with first responders and the traumas that they face. And so that's why we have this show. I'm not a first responder, I'm a filmmaker, but I'm joined by some amazing people. And just in a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Todd. We had some technical difficulties getting Todd connected, but we're working on that and we'll get it solved here momentarily, so stand by. So I want to give you an update. As you know, we've been having a crowdfunding campaign to raise money for our film, and which ended like around midnight last night or something like that. And we ended up with $5,700 for our initial funding campaign. So didn't quite reach our goal that we had, but hey, it is a great start to our fundraising for this film. And it gives us seed money to get to where we want to go. And so that is a great start. So if you were a contributor to that, I want to say a huge, hearty thank you. Thank you for supporting this film. Thank you for sharing it on your social sites. Thank you for being invested in this project, enough so that you even gave money. So, and here's the deal. If you say, hey, you know what, I'd still like to support this film financially, well, you can still do that. So even though our Indiegogo campaign has ended, our crowdfunding campaign, or our funding campaign is ongoing. And we do that through our website. And I'm going to show you the link here. If you go to our website, ptsd911movie.com, you can go right on the homepage here and you can click on this big orange button here. It says honor a first responder. When you click on that, it takes you to a Square page. If you're familiar with the Square app, you can go right on there and you can honor a first responder by, if you donate $100, you can put your name in honor of your favorite first responder. Or you can sign up for the online streaming premiere, where only our funders will be able to join us for that online streaming premiere. And then you can do a custom amount if you want to give, hey, if you want to give $1,000, if you want to give, more than that or less than that, that's fine. If you want to give $1, that is great. We would love it. And so you can also sign up here for your name in the credits. For $20, you can just have your name in the credits, and we will thank you for that. So that is where you can go. Again, go to our website homepage, and it's right here. And if you want to learn more about the film project, go to our website. You can go and learn and see who's on our board of advisors. And our guest today, Todd, is one of our advisory members. And we have a whole list of advisors here who are in the first responder community who are giving us advice and guiding us through the stories that we are telling through our film. And also on our website, you can learn more about the organizations who have endorsed us. We've got some really fantastic organizations who are behind us, including the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation, the Concerns of Police Survivors, the Blue Help, a great organization, NINA, the 911 Number Association, as well as the National Volunteer Fire Council and the Law Enforcement Survival Institute. These organizations have endorsed us. We're waiting on a few other endorsements from some organizations that have committed to that. You can learn more about us, who we are, and this is me, and then my co-producer, Nancy Froman, who's also working on the film. And then, of course, we have all of our First Responder Friday videos from the past are here on our website as well. And you can also find these on our YouTube channel at PTSD 911 Movie. So you can get all the information here about our film, get our, all the different things that you want to know about us and the film. And you can also make a donation. And if you are a company, an organization, and you say, hey, we would like to do more to help this film get off the ground, and you want to come on board as a sponsor for the film, we have a place for you to do that. If you fill out this form, I will send you our prospectus where you can see what the sponsorship levels are to to help us with this film. So that's kind of the rundown on the documentary. And also, if you are on Instagram, join us on Instagram, PTSD 911 Movie, and we are also on Twitter at the same name, PTSD 911 Movie. Join us and follow us there, and keep up with what's going on Instagram. We post different photos and things that we're working on and different projects, even doing some of my mental health days here, taking a bike ride. Have updates on the movie, and we have who's coming on the show and that kind of thing. So join us there on PTSD 911 Movie on Instagram and on Twitter, and keep up with us there. And then share it with your network. If you can do that, we would be so ever grateful when people can share that, share our project with your network. That would be fantastic. So we're still waiting on Todd to join us. He's having some trouble logging in, and we're going to try to get that fixed here momentarily. But I want to also talk about what's coming up in the next few weeks. So we have some fantastic guests coming up. Next week, we have Chelsea Davenport, and she's going to come talking about prevention and the company she represents there. And so please join us next Friday at noon Eastern time for Chelsea. And I just heard Todd added to the stream, so we're going to add him here in a minute. And then coming up on Friday, August 28th, our very first former now paramedic, Leah Swazinski. She's going to be joining us for Paramedic Wellness. That's on Friday, August 28th. So please join us for that. And I'm going to add Todd here to the stream, and we may not be able to see him, but I think we can hear him. Todd, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Todd. So we're going to, we don't have you on camera, but we have you on audio, which is, I'm not sure why that's happening, but that's okay.
That's a bummer.
We can make it work, and we have a little pulsating button there that pulsates when you talk. So I just want to give you a little bit of a little bit of a bio for Todd. He's an amazing law enforcement officer. He's worked at the Garland Police Department in Texas for over 18 years, and with the majority of that time spent on street patrol. So he has been in the trenches and is currently in the trenches. And he's also the mental health liaison for the Garland Police Department. And he's been a member of the SWAT team and a hostage negotiator. He's a certified mental health officer, a suicide and crisis center of North Texas, and a certified telephone crisis counselor. And he does a host of other things in the mental health field when it relates to law enforcement. Todd, welcome to First Responder Friday.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm really sorry about the technical problems. I'm not really sure what's going on.
Well, that's what happens. I had another show that I do for another project I'm working on, and last week we had supposed to have a guest on who is a social media. She's really well known in social media, and we had storms come through the area where she was at, and she couldn't join the show, so we had to cancel that show and postpone it. So, worse things can happen, right?
Yeah.
So Todd, tell me a little bit about your background there at the Garland Police Department and your background in law enforcement in general.
Okay. I've been with the Garland Police Department just a little over 18 years. I spent about 16 years in patrol. So I have a lot of experience with occupational trauma that comes with working patrol for that length of time. While I was at the Garland Police Department, I was figuring out real quick that I was really interested in the officer safety side of policing that comes with high level of listening and communication skills. So I started trying to figure out early on how I can get more training in that area. And I was really intrigued by hostage negotiations. So when an opening came on the hostage negotiations team, I jumped at the opportunity to put in my memo and go through the board and selection process, and I was selected. That was about 10 years ago. So in that time, I've just received hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of training at different FBI and law enforcement schools for high-level listening and communication skills and empathetic connection with a person that's in crisis of some sort.
So did that training as a hostage negotiator, did that kind of translate into, being able to listen to the traumas that people are going through? That kind of translate into what you're doing now in the world of mental wellness?
Yes, very, very much so. Very much so. The types of skills you learn to listen at a high level are pretty easy to understand, and they're really easy to apply to your everyday life. So, your own personal relationships, your family relationships, friends, and then definitely with someone that's in some kind of brain health crisis or having some kind of anxiety or anything of that nature. It definitely was very effective to raise my skill set or any officer's skill set in that area.
So, what then was really your interest in getting into the mental health side? Was that because of your training there with the hostage, negotiating team, or was that kind of develop in a different way?
It was probably two-part. Initially, it was we were getting dispatched to probably about a quarter of our time, 20% of our time, we're being dispatched to some kind of call with a mental health or a brain health type component to it. So I was realizing real quick that I needed to really up my skill sets in that area because of the time spent and wanting to be able to really be effective in that area when you're going to be speaking to someone that's actually like a patient, they have a medical condition. But then when I was selected to the hostage negotiator team, it just ramped up that interest because obviously someone that's in a situation where the police are called and a SWAT team's called, they're definitely having a brain health crisis at the time. And you need to have a really high skill set to connect in a meaningful way to try and de-escalate that and come up with a peaceful resolution.
Hmm. Have you had any kind of? I mean, I know you've experienced trauma. I know you can't be that long on the police force and not experience that. So, how have you dealt with trauma in your own personal life?
Right. So, any kind of like psychological trauma for first responders, I use analogies like it's unavoidable. The same way, say, if you wanted to play pro football, it's going to introduce trauma to your body, and you have to do things like to mitigate that trauma so you can stay healthy. Or, if you want to do anything, like if you want to go run 10 miles, you're going to expose yourself to traumas, and you have to do things like rest and fuel properly and train properly in the right equipment, or you're going to be injured. So one of the things that there's many things, and it's a real personal journey, but for me there's several things that have been really helpful for me, and you read about these things all the time in different types of first responder resiliency books or programs, and speakers talk about all the time, is that you need to have a system in place to detach from the first responder type environment and the things that you're exposed to. And what that means is that like you need to make an effort to find an interest that's outside of law enforcement or outside of whatever your first responder work is. You find that kind of interest and you start focusing on it. I mean, people call it a hobby, but it doesn't actually have to be a hobby. It can be something related to relaxation. Many things are real simple. It's like you enjoy fishing, so you make that important, and that detaches you from whatever the first responder work is. For me, it was anything motorsports. I enjoy racing on closed courses. I used to road race motorcycles. I enjoy the mechanics end of that work and the high performance end. I transitioned into cars and endurance racing cars with teammates. And I like the mechanics inside of that. And it has nothing to do, it completely detaches my brain and gives me that much important break from anything that's related to my law enforcement job. And I really found that like just that alone is one of the components to maintaining, a healthier brain.
So, if you're just joining us, we're talking with Todd Gyure with the Garland Police Department. And no, Todd isn't a white dot. He's actually a human being. He had some trouble with his camera this morning, so or this afternoon, so we're not, we don't have him on camera, but he's with us here. So, Todd, is it also important, besides just having an outside interest, is it also important to have outside friends outside the agency that you're with?
Yes, that is. If you spend any time trying to educate yourself and become more aware of what's good for first responder resiliency. That is another component that you'll hear again and again and again from leaders in the field, irregardless if they're a psychologist or they're just someone with a lot of first responder personal firsthand experience. You'll hear that you need to make an effort to maintain part of your friends network is outside of whatever your first responder field is. And so for me, it was just, it was much easier to maintain that because of the hobby that I had, because of the guys that I'm on the race team with. They're all technicians. They're own their own metal fabrication shop. They're kind of in that industry, and they're not first responders. So then one of the actually therapeutic things for me is we are spending our time talking about things that have nothing to do with like a case we're working or a really traumatic call we went on. And so again, that's that thing we go back to. You'll hear as a theme for me that you give your brain that all important break from those traumatic type events. Because if I only hung out with other law enforcement professionals, you start talking about what you know and what you do. So you'd find yourself on your own time at a friend's house, a law enforcement friend's house, and their cookout, and you're talking about, hey, do you remember that crash we went on, or this case we're working, or this other traumatic event? So you're on your own time. You're supposed to be enjoying yourself, say, like at a barbecue, and you start talking about the traumatic events again.
Well, did you kind of learn this the hard way, or is this something that was given to you as as a young officer?
There was probably a mix there. So some of it I was actually taught here at the Garland Police Department about the importance of that. And then some of it was literally just trial and error, where I might have been finding myself at one point with primarily work related friends. And then I started experiencing hearing the conversation going back to work and back to work and back to work stuff. And I literally just started to realize for myself and speaking with other colleagues that like this was not going to be healthy for me. Like this wasn't a sustainable thing that was going to keep my brain healthy and well adjusted to be successful and last a long time. And that goes back to my analogy about anything that you're going to do something that's going to introduce trauma, irregardless if it's your brain or another part of your body. You've got to do something to mitigate that trauma or you're going to get hurt. And it's really easy to think about when it's something physical. Sometimes it seems more of a challenge for some of us when you apply it to this another organ in your body that happens to be your brain. But when it's something physical, like if you told someone, hey, I'm going to go run 10 miles, they'd ask right away, have you been training? Because they know you're going to get hurt. Or if you say, hey, I'm going to go climb this Mount Everest, they're going to ask, wow, have you been training to be a mountain climber? Because they know if you don't, you're going to get hurt. So part of our goal is we want to try and, break the stigma. You hear that term all the time in first responder fields, and just raise awareness that those kind of analogies for your physical being also apply to your brain.
So if you have a question for Officer Gyure, just put it in the comments below, and I'll see those, and we'll pop them up on the screen. So, Todd, how much is an agency responsible for their officers' mental well-being? What should the agency's response be or responsibility be for that?
So I think that this would be where they should be just as engaged, just as invested in that as any agency would be in the physical health of their officers or other training that's related to the officers that's considered important to carry out their job at whatever it is as a first responder at the highest level possible. So if you work in an agency and they have like a wellness program or they have a physical fitness pay incentive program, they should also be really seriously considering that they have some kind of similar program set up for your brain health, for your actually the performance of this really, really important organ, your brain, that is going to need to be really, really healthy to make the best decisions possible, possibly in a split nanosecond. It's something that should be really important. It's something that chiefs of police and sheriffs that are interested in anything progressive, anything cutting edge, they're all focusing on now. They're all looking for the best program and the best thing to do. But you know, from my just personal opinion, it should be right there with your agency's, your place of work's focus on your actual physical well-being and like their commit to your wellness or whatever. It should be including your brain. It should be something that's just as important.
I mean, isn't the officers train with their weapons? They do physical workouts and all that all the time, right? And so it should be just as vital, even maybe perhaps more vital, to take care of your mind and your brain that controls everything else, right?
Yeah, like literally, that is uh, that would be the ultimate goal that I believe personally that any first responder organization should be striving for. They want to break the stigma and they want to put programs in place that are just something that becomes the norm at their agency or at their place of employment. Where, like, say, it's the norm that you take part in a physical fitness test every year because you're trying to get that pay incentive. It should be just as the norm that you would be going and doing something that helps your brain health. Like, say it was something as simple as you're going to talk to a therapist every 6 months to kind of unpack the last 6 months of occupational trauma that you were exposed to and see if there was something else you should be participating in. Or maybe even lower than that, you'd be thinking about, hey, every quarter I'm going to speak to some of my peers and kind of unpack the last 4 months of occupational trauma that I was exposed to.
But hasn't there been a lot of resistance to that over the years? Just as far as I don't want to go see a shrink. It kind of has that stigma, right? I mean, how do you overcome that stigma?
Yeah, so I sometimes I wonder if it's resistance or if it's just a lack of understanding or a lack of exposure at a high level to what's actually going on. But you're definitely correct that when you get a type of employment, and it doesn't matter if it would be police or fire or a pro football team or the military, but you get a group of people together that are in a type of work, and it comes with an attitude, and you're trying to achieve goals and stuff. It can be difficult to make a message that resonates with your audience, that is explaining how important your brain health is. So there definitely is a barrier there. It's something that all my contemporaries are really interested in and trying to reduce that stigma. And it's one of the things that like instantly engaged me to want to communicate with you and your staff when I first saw the trailer for PTSD 911. It literally instantly resonated with me that the members that I work with in the North Texas region on first responder, not just law enforcement, but other first responder occupations, it instantly resonated with me that like this is one of those vehicles that we're looking for to help reduce the stigma and bring some information that's like high quality and meaningful that the audience will be able to understand and maybe start expanding their willingness to participate in this kind of wellness.
Well, it's my really honor and privilege to be telling this story, to be working with members of law enforcement and first responder agencies from all over the country, and so we're excited to be able to put together this film to tell this important story. I think, and if you're watching today, first of all, I want to say thank you for watching, thank you for participating. We've gotten some amazing comments in the comments below. If you have a question for Todd, please put it in the comments below, and we'll field those questions as we go along here. So, Todd, what has the Garland Police Department done over the years, and what are they doing? What are they ongoing doing to help their officers to remain healthy?
That's a great question, and it's one of those things right now that you want to start somewhere at an agency. And it's really good. We've figured out a really good system that you want to start with something that's like the most accessible to your members of your agency. So one of the first things that was developed here, initially it was from our assistant chief of patrol at the time, Brian, and now he's been the chief of police here at the Garland Police Department for more than a year. But he initiated us adapting the CISM model, the Critical Incident Stress Management. He initiated us adopting that model. I think we're somewhere around 40 to 50 officers at this department are trained in that model. And we started running critical incident stress management sessions after critical incidents that we either identified on our own from the shift report or officers that were in the field that were at those would make us aware of. And we saw right away a huge value in those meetings within about the first 48 hours of the occurrence. We noticed the officers benefiting greatly from that, like ventilation time and speaking to others that speak your language and that have experienced some of the similar things that you have, and just literally getting to ventilate. We weren't having to try and like solve any kind of certain problem at the time. We were just facilitating ventilation. And then since then, we've started to expand into peer-to-peers. CISM has a one-on-one aspect, and we've been expanding into some peer-to-peer, where sometimes you can get more connectivity, you can get more ventilation, you can get more openness from an involved person in the traumatic event if it's just a one-on-one, because then you kind of take out some of the barriers of some of their co-workers who are there, and they may not be so willing to, open up and kind of ventilate fully to get the most out of it. So we've been expanding into some peer-to-peer. Our chief of police, Brian, has afforded me as the mental health liaison the opportunity to just research all of the geographically appropriate, so meaning accessible right here in North Texas, officer or first responder resiliency programs that exist right here in North Texas. And that could be ones that are either offered at a brain health hospital, or that could be therapists that I've located that are retired law enforcement that are either or they are married to someone in a first responder field, or their father and their brothers in a first responder field, and they have some kind of cultural competency, because you're like always looking for that cultural competency. So the chief of police here, Brian, has afforded me that opportunity where I did all of this research in the past, and I've come up with this comprehensive list. So we're basically trying to use, kind of like with anything in healthcare, the stepping stone approach, where we start like at the ground level. We will use something like the CISM or peer-to-peer, and then we'll go from that, and we'll see maybe a non-traditional method, like our Watch office here in Texas with equine therapy and Dr. Twiddell. Or maybe we'll tap into one of our other outstanding partners here in North Texas, like 22 Kill. They've got numerous non-traditional therapies. That's one of the things that I really appreciate, your willingness to have me on today, because it's exciting to me to talk about things that are non-traditional. Sometimes in first responder field, and really in the general public, it's hard to get someone to start and then take a huge step. So like if it's something brain health, it's a pretty big step to go from just talking to your buddy about the traumatic event and then going into a therapist's office. But if you can offer them something else non-traditional, like if you can offer them, maybe they're already a big outdoorsman, a lot of guys that are first responders, they live on a ranch, 10 acres or more, they've got horses and cattle and stuff. If you can offer them an equine therapy as like a stepping stone, and if they go to that and they unpack some of that trauma and they have a positive experience, and there's a culturally competent psychologist or therapist that's attached to that equine therapy, then they make that personal connection. And later, if they think they could benefit from more medical treatment, they already have this connection now. They call up that therapist, they get their 6 to 8 or maybe even more sessions, and they arrive on the other side healthy. And like 22 Kill, there's other non-traditional methods out there. There's wind therapy if you're a motorcycle rider. There's different hiking or mountain climbing. I mean, there's many opportunities out there. And I would really want our audience listening to think about tapping into those. Like, it's not just your EAP program. It's not just CISM. It's not just going to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a therapist. There's other things that a stepping stone model. And that's something here at Garland PD that with the leadership of our command staff and Chief Brian and the commitment to that, we've been able to start tapping into that. I don't want to sound like we have all the answers or we're the best thing out there, but we're definitely working hard to provide something real valuable, something researched, something vetted, something appropriate to our members.
Just in the few weeks that I've engaged with you, I've learned a lot about what you guys do, and I think that you are a model for others to follow. There's so many agencies that can learn from what you guys are doing. We have some questions coming in. We have a question from Laura, who I'm going to put up on the screen here. She says, as a civilian who wants to start encouraging our local departments to institute mental wellness programs, where and how is the best place to begin so I can gain more interest than the resistance?
So I think one thing really good for Laura is in the last 5 years or so in law enforcement and first responder, because of course I don't want to be on an island. I don't want to just stay in my own lane. So I talk to fire, I talk to dispatch, I talk to forensics, I talk to other first responder fields. I think Laura's at a good time where if she's interested in trying to be involved like that in this solution and moving this forward, if she contacts most chiefs of police or sheriffs, their contact information is on the city or the county's website. If she wants to just send them an email, if she searches on the agency site, she should be able to find most agencies have some kind of victims assistant advocate or some kind of mental health liaison or mental health unit. If she wanted to contact one of them and engage, that would definitely be a starting point. Obviously, this is, for example, we're in a really good position here in the city of Garland. Another avenue for her would be she could contact her local city council person. In the city of Garland, we have unbelievably awesome support all the way from the city manager, the mayor, the city council. They are all on board for advancing our first responder brain health resiliency programs. So we are in a really fortunate position. But I mean, those are some starting points.
I think that's a really important point, is that this is a community issue, because these first responders are in our community. They help take care of our community. They protect our community. They keep our communities healthy. And I think we as civilians have the responsibility to do what we can to help them, to help our first responder agencies to be better, to do better, and to be healthy. I think that's it's a great way to to engage with the community. And I've often said, if you've watched this program, you've heard me say it before. When I call 911, I would hope someone healthy answers the phone, and then someone healthy shows up to my emergency. And that's what we as a community need to request from our law enforcement, from our fire, from our EMS, from our dispatchers. We need to ask for that.
Yes.
Because if they're not healthy, then our community is at risk. And
Correct.
So Todd, what do you think has been, with all the stuff that's going on around the country, do you think perhaps some of those things, not all, but some of those events, are perhaps a result of an unhealthy environment in a local jurisdiction?
I mean, I really think that's a very interesting question to bring up. I think it's something that in a first responder field, we definitely want to be examining. And I keep using the analogy that I learned to anything else that can afflict the human experience. If you have someone, and I'll just use football again, if you have someone that you're going to put out there on the football field and you haven't been setting up practices in place to help take care of them, and then they suddenly get injured, their knee gets injured, and you start looking at it and you're like, wait a minute, he hasn't been doing the strength and conditioning, and he hasn't been doing the rehab stuff, whatever, and then he got injured. It's something that you would want to think, we got to make improvements about that. So if you have your first responder out there and they're being exposed to occupational trauma again and again and again and again, and you require them, rightfully so. You hold them to a really high standard of performance. You definitely need to be there to help assist them to meet those high standards, and not just meet those standards, but exceed them and thrive at a really high level. So yeah, I think that's something that when you look at an incident, you'd want to look at who the first responder was, and when you're trying to figure out how to improve, part of the conversation would be is you'd want to take a look at about, hey, so what are we doing to try and help these officers and have their brain health thriving at the highest level possible, so they can do things to mitigate all the occupational trauma that is exposed to them. It's something, Conrad, that I don't, it's not a joke, but it's something that gets brought up a lot in law enforcement. That citizens, like they kind of do with the military, will see you out eating at lunch, or see you out and about, or see you on a call for service, and they'll thank you for their service. And a lot of first responders wonder, and we talk amongst each other, does the resident really know what they're thanking you for? Do they really know what, when they say thank you for your service or thank you for what you do they really know? And sometimes I think, no, you don't, because I was not a first responder for a big chunk of my life, and I didn't know. I mean, I thought I knew from TV and movies that aren't documentaries. I thought I knew, but boy, I didn't know. And now, 18 years later, when someone thanks me for my service, I think to myself, man, I don't think they have any idea what they're thanking me really for.
Yeah, until you've been, and I've done ride-alongs with our local law enforcement here, and so I've seen, I've seen a few things. I have not seen some, many of the traumas that you guys have experienced and seen, obviously, but I got a better picture of what law enforcement goes through. And just to being able to hang out with them for a whole shift, evening and overnight shift, it was an amazing experience. And I think, many agencies, will sometimes permit civilians to come right along and to get that experience, so we can better understand what. And I had the privilege of doing that, and I just want to say thank you to our local agencies here in Frederick for allowing me to do that. And because I learned so much, and I learned that there's hours of boredom and moments of terror.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how it works in many of these first responder communities.
That, Conrad. Back to Laura's question. That's another thing. Look into like her local fire department, police department. Many of them nationwide have citizens, police or fire academies, and it's well worth her time to sign up, because when she sign up, she'll learn more about that agency, and she'd be afforded the opportunity to meet decision makers that are in that agency during that citizens police or fire academy, and bring up concerns of hers like, hey, what kind of programs you guys have in place for your personnel's brain health? That would be a perfect opportunity, and she'll learn way more all about that agency. Those academies normally last 10, 15 weeks, one night a week, and you leave there so much more connected with like what's the reality and how you can be part of moving forward and progress forward.
I just saw that Laura made another comment. She says she's the director of an equine assisted therapeutic program and runs peer support groups, and she lives in Pennsylvania, and she says we need this in Pennsylvania in parts of her community. So
awesome.
that's an exciting thing.
Yeah.
So how has, kind of bringing it more to our current situation, how has COVID impacted your agency from a mental health perspective?
Law enforcement has already a high level of occupational trauma that comes with being in this line of work. And then you take something like a pandemic of a type that no one living today has ever experienced, and it just added another level of stressor. Temporarily, for many weeks, it reassigned numerous personnel back to patrol, to working in patrol, and that added stressors. It changed all these practices with different types of PE that added layers to what you were doing to like gear up for the calls you were getting out on. Of course, it raised concerns about, if you were to be exposed, if you got sick, You didn't want to bring any of that to your family and to your loved ones or whatever. And then your residents that we're serving, they're under a ton of stress too. So it just created a perfect storm of increasing these stressors. And something that I was at a community meeting last night that was said by one of the community members at the meeting is they made sure to point out that first responders are simply members of our community. They're just other human beings. Like, they're not a RoboCop. They're not some kind of cyborg. They're literally our brothers and sisters, mothers and fathers, neighbors. They're just human beings like us. And
That's what I've been trying to say that, for months that I've been working on this film project that, my neighbor is a sheriff's deputy and he's just a guy in my neighborhood. And he puts on a uniform, straps on his gun and his badge, and he goes off to work, many times at night. And he's just another human being who, like all law enforcement and all of first responders, they are real, heart beating human beings who have emotions and have feelings. And that's the reality. I think that sometimes TV shows and movies have glamorized or, made law enforcement, especially, larger than life and more powerful than life. And when you guys are just human beings who take care of our communities and do unbelievable things that we ask you to do.
Right.
Yeah. So, what do you see? What are some resources that perhaps agencies can tap into? You mentioned a few earlier, but what are some other resources that perhaps someone who doesn't have what you guys have there in Garland, Texas, what are some resources that people can go to, websites that they can go to find information about how to help their agency's members?
So, one that I would look at, I would say you should look at every day if first responder resiliency is really important to you in your community, is you'd want to look at Blue Help. You'd want to look at Blue Help's Facebook like every day. You'd want to look at their Facebook page. You'd want to see what's going on there. You'd want to see what podcasts or what kind of information that they're talking about is on, because that is going to be a really, really good resource for you. You might also want to look at, they do something every Wednesday on Mad Radio. You'd want to look at that, and a badge of honor is associated with their radio program. If you just Google search badge of honor, you'd find it. But Blue Help would be something every day. You look at their Facebook page, you're going to learn new things. You're going to find out webinars, conferences, once COVID-19 is more under control with a vaccine or whatever it takes. You would see places you can travel to that are pulling out the top-notch officer resiliency programs. I mean, even the International Association of Chiefs of Police, they are at the forefront of trying to advance officer and first responder resiliency. The International Association of Chiefs of Police. And that's where you can kind of see that decision makers that are chiefs of police, they're sheriffs, that are FBI special agent in charge, they're seeing this information and they're all starting to connect into it. And just in our region, it's kind of off your question, but as an example, when I founded the Law Enforcement Mental Health Alliance of North Texas about a year ago, I was hoping about 10 agencies in North Texas would show up. And instead, we've been somewhere near 30 agencies were showing up. So they're interested. They're interested in learning about what's the best officer and first responder resiliency programs out there.
I also want to give just was reminded in the comments that also the International Critical Incident Stress Foundation has some resources there for first responder communities. So check that out. And both of these organizations, Blue Help, the ICISF, they're both have their members and that their organizations that have endorsed our film project, and we're excited to have them on board. And so we just want to give a shout out to them.
You could actually just go to the PTSD 911 film website and then look to the endorsements, and you've already got some connection right there. Just start looking at who endorsed it, because if the nonprofits and other programs that are endorsing you, just go to them then and start looking at what they're doing, because they're endorsing your film, because they when they see something that's good, that's going to advance officer resiliency, they have no problem writing an endorsement letter. So I'd go to those sites too and look.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just go check it out, ptsd911movie.com, and just click on the endorsements tab here, and you'll
Yeah.
see those organizations there. Todd, what do you see that law enforcement needs to do as a whole across the country to improve mental wellness for officers? What are some things that need to take place, perhaps from legislative standpoint or from just a big picture?
So just like anything else in healthcare, funding is a big barrier. So there are right now, like just for what I can speak on in North Texas, there are some really excellent programs, and some of them are run through nonprofits, but somebody has to pay. So if you're going and you're getting equine therapy at our watch, or you're going to 22 kill programs, it may be no cost to you as the participant, but there is a cost to put on those really valuable non-traditional therapies. So definitely funding is a hurdle. So we can find out, I can find one of the best culturally competent, speaks our language therapists, but then I'll run into a barrier to get personnel to it because of funding. So literally one of the things I see is in our region, there's a lot of good programs, but it'd be awesome to have some legislative wise to have some kind of funding that was helping us to access those and just reduce that barrier. I mean, just like anything in healthcare, it's pretty awesome if you can tell somebody, hey, I've got this great program. I think it's going to make you healthier. I think it's going to make you perform your job at a much higher level, a lot better family life and stuff. But it's going to be, $800 for you and your spouse or you and your partner to attend. That's a barrier. I mean, so if there was some funding, especially legislative wide, to help support some of these really important first responder resiliency programs, that would go a long way.
Yeah, I think that's so important to support our first responder communities, to help our first responders to be healthy. And I think that we as the civilians need to be willing to really push our legislators and our city leaders to provide the funding and resources for that, so that we can all have a better, safer, and better communities. So, Todd, what are you doing? So you're into cars, you're into racing, things like that. Is that something you do every week, every day? I mean, how often should I, if I'm a law enforcement officer, how often should I do these things that really connect me outside my agency and outside my work so I can stay healthy?
So one of the things that you'll hear said a lot by people that I respect in the field is this term, you got to unplug. So when you are off if it's a shift work, if you're off your shift, if you're on your own time in the evening or in the morning or whenever your own time is, if you're off on Monday and Tuesday, whatever your days off set are, during those times, like you need to make a concerted effort to unplug and do whatever else it is. Like it can even be like you've got some home improvement projects, or you've got some favorite TV show you wanted to binge watch, or you've been trying to get back on track with some power walking or running or CrossFit or any kind of activity like that. You want to start making those things a priority. And human beings, like, we all really thirst for a routine. That's one of the things that kind of sometimes makes work rewarding, is you get this routine, and when this is going to happen, when that's going to happen. You want to try and make these things on your own time like a routine that you do. And if you can do it with your partner or your spouse or a good friend or whatever, because then you create that support network to kind of keep you to it. Add that to it if that's going to help you. But you want to try and make these things important, and you want to make a routine out of them. Because obviously I'm not out enjoying the adrenaline rush of endurance racing a car every weekend. I'm also not turning wrenches on them every weekend. So I want to make other aspects of things I do, if I'm going to go for a run, or if I'm going to do some CrossFit, or if I'm going to lift weights, or if I'm going to go, something else I enjoy, if I'm going to go fishing, or if I'm just going to go watch my favorite movie or have some friends over, but you want to make these things a routine. And you've got to make them important. Like you have to make those things just as important as showing up to your first responder job and performing at a high level is. You want to make the other things when you unplug just as important.
Boy, I think these are things that all of us, no matter what our occupation, that we need to be doing, and but especially for those who are our first responders who are, responding to emergencies, other people's emergencies. It's important to stay healthy, and these are some things that we're going to be really diving into in our film project to tell this story, and to not only tell the war stories and the struggles, but we're going to highlight agencies, like the Garland Police Department, who are doing things right and doing things well, so that when people watch this movie, they can say, "Hey, you know what? We can do that. We can do the same thing they're doing, or something. Get kind of start working toward that direction of helping our first responders to be healthy." And I think that's really one of my goals with this film, is to inspire change. And to inspire and change in agencies, to inspire change in individuals as well. And so those are some important things that we all need to do. Todd, what's the best way for, if someone wants to contact you or your organization, who should they contact? How can they get a hold of you?
My phone number from my office and my email, they're on the city's website if you just navigate to the police part. But definitely try and shoot me an email. Call me. If I don't answer, leave me a message and I'll respond to all those. Email is really, really a good way to shoot me an email. But I'm real accessible by just going to the City of Garland website, going to the police, and then looking in community services, and my name's there. You got my email address, so you can post that or distribute that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely interested, because that's why when I formed Lima, I knew that, I'm not under some illusion that I'm the smartest guy in the room for officer resiliency. And I wanted to, and that's one thing that Chief Bryan at the Garland Police Department is real important to him too. We need to partner with the community, and we need to talk about what's going on. And then we want to find the best practices, and we want to start, always moving forward, always learning, never just sitting back and thinking we've got it figured out or we've got the answer or anything. And when I saw your trailer that I probably watched 30 times with the volume turned way up, I noticed how you really were highlighting dispatchers that at the Garland Police Department, we 100% believe they are part of our first responder umbrella. But it's really easy for them to be overlooked, because they're either down in some bunker or they're up in some high level and no one has access to them. And you don't really, if you're at a bigger agency, you don't have a lot of connectivity, and you just kind of forget that, oh no, they're in this with us. They're in smaller agencies, the officers they're dispatching to some of these potentially traumatic events or dangerous events, that's their friend. That's their coworker and friend. They spend personal time with them, and their families get together, and their children are play with each other and all that stuff. So highlighting the dispatchers and the occupational trauma they're exposed to, I was really, really impressed with you and your team doing that, because dispatch, forensics, they can really be overlooked.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it's something that I really wasn't aware of until I was actually talking to actually a volunteer with our local fire station who happens to be a dispatcher as well. And he's also the president of the Vigilant Hose Company here, our volunteer station. And he said, something you need to look at is the dispatch side of things. And I hadn't thought about that before. And as I started diving into it, making connections, and then we had Nina come on board, I realized that, wow, this is a really important thing that most people in civilian world, we don't know. We don't understand that. And so I'm really excited to highlight some of these stories. And we've have numerous people who've reached out to us through our Facebook page, through our website, and tell us their story. And so we're really looking forward to, once we got the money raised and we can go out and we can travel and shoot some of these interviews, we're really looking forward to putting this together. Todd, it's been awesome having you on the show today. I think we've had great comments and great feedback on the Facebook chat here, and so I really appreciate it. What's next for you? What are you working on?
So we're really focused right now and working on expanding things for our officer and our personnel's resiliency. So forensics, dispatch is included in there. We're really working on programs to expand that. We're really working on expanding things we do for any kind of CIT training. We've just recently launched our own in-house, following our governing body here for licensing TCOLE's 1850 CIT school. We just launched our own school that I'm instructing at. We're really expanding that because we want to try and equip our officers to not only be brain healthy and resilient for themselves, we want to keep expanding their skill set to perform at the highest level possible when they meet our residents here in Garland that are having some kind of crisis. They're having some kind of brain health crisis. We want our officers to be able to be equipped to perform at the highest level to assist those patients. So we're working on those. We have a lot of things going on. We're always in, like with the current pandemic, and we have a lot of extra stressors now. So we're really busy, and we're just constantly trying, the Garland Police Department, we're just constantly trying to learn and progress and partner with the community and partner with the other agencies and fire and EMS, see what's working best and just keep going forward. Just in PTSD 911 film, I see this as something that will be a training tool, help us go forward, help us raise awareness for years and years and years to come. So that's why we're so glad to partner with you guys. I think it's going to be something really, really impressive.
Well, we're excited to just wanted to also remind people that Todd is also on our board of advisors for our film, and we're excited to have him on board. I want to show you the Garland Police Department's website. So if you want to be able to contact Todd or learn more about what the Garland Police Department is doing, go to their website. It's at garlandpolice.com, and you can check it out there and learn more about everything they are doing there in Texas. So it's been great having Todd Gyure here with us on First Responder Friday. Todd, thank you for joining us for this hour. And an hour went by quickly. So, and for those of you who are wondering, no, Todd is not just a white dot on a circle. He's actually a real person. We had some technological challenges there with the camera, but what a great conversation and great comments that you've made, Todd. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Conrad, I really appreciate you guys, your team, being part of making this better. That's what's really important.
Absolutely, that's what we're hoping to do. So hang on 1 minute, Todd. I'm gonna talk about a few things coming up, and we'll wrap up after we're off the air. So coming up next week, Chelsea Davenport is going to be with us. We're going to talk about prevention, and she's also with the Healthy Hire, Healthy Retire organization, and she's going to be talking about that. So please join us next Friday, August 21st at 12 noon. And then coming up on Friday, August 28th, 12 noon, Leah Zawinski is going to join us. She is a retired paramedic, and is going to be talking about paramedic wellness and the challenges that paramedics face as first responders. You are watching First Responder Friday, and today we've had Todd Gyure with us with the Garland Police Department in Garland, Texas. Todd, again, thank you for joining us, and thank you everyone for watching, and please join us again next week. And if you would like to learn more about PTSD 911, the movie, go check out our website, and you can see the trailer that Todd was talking about, and then you can also click on support this film and give us some support and some love if you care to. So again, this has been First Responder Friday. My name is Conrad Weaver. I'm your host, and I'll talk to you